Hi, Wahsayah. I'm Gavin,
And I'm Zach.
and welcome to the Vanguard podcast. We've just been joined by Wahsayah Whitebird, and who you defeated the city council president David Mattel in Ashland, Wisconsin, as a member of the Communist Party in 2019. Would you be able to introduce yourself a little bit to us and give us some details about how you unseated this established incumbent in your community?
Sure. So, my name is Wahsayah Whitebird, and I ran for city council election last year and won the election back in April of 2019. And so the election process itself was pretty rural. The positions are nonpartisan for these offices. So I ran my platform of trying to advocate for trying to find ways to get the city to push for better more housing, or at least more affordable housing. Trying to do as much as we can for promoting better wages, and if I could try to implement a higher minimum wage in our community, and as well as trying to advocate for trying to reinforce the need that we need shelters in our community, try to take care of our destitute. And that was my platform. It's very rural, very simple. So when you do these small town elections for city council positions, they are not explicitly partisan, but how everything kind of snowballed into me being known as being a communist was that about after I won my election, I was asked by a reporter. He says, "Well, it says on your Facebook page you're a communist and all that. Is that true?" I was like, "Yep. Here's the hammer and sickle right on my Ushanka because it's winter. And so then that went published on the front page of our Ashland Daily Press, and there was the picture of me holding the Ushanka right next to me and holding the city council, the city's budget for the administration.
What's that been like, being known as a communist now? I imagine that you endure a lot of hate mail and trolls.
Not a whole lot. I mean, I get one occasional goofball who thinks that, being communist is crazy, but otherwise, no, I've actually gotten a lot more praise out of it.
Interesting. Yeah. I wanted to ask you kind of about the response to, once I guess you were unencumbered by a label of a political party while you were running. And I wonder if you thought that was to your benefit, being able to get kind of down to the meat and potatoes of, the communist ethic of, okay, we need to take care of the working people, the working poor, and like you said, also the homeless population. Especially now in the time of COVID, I'm wondering what was the reaction to those kinds of proposals when you first ran in 2019 and
versus what they are now?
Yeah, where we are so desperately in need of this, one, shelters for our, homeless populations who are, facing a pandemic with no shelter, as well as, obvious relief for our families who have been economically devastated by the shutdowns. I just wondered if you could speak a little bit to how that's impacted your community in Ashland.
Okay, so on the city council, I've been arguing for economic addressment of our local issues by the city. I run into snag with the mayor and some of the council members who think that dealing with those economic problems is a matter for the county, but the problem is that the county doesn't do anything. So it makes it very difficult to try to address these sort of things when I have a council and a mayor who thinks that this isn't our responsibility, and yet the responsibilities aren't being handled by those who are supposed to be doing them. So it makes for an interesting time, especially as we move forward through this COVID crisis, where people are facing evictions and where our homeless population is still at probably a higher risk than normal concerning all these things. And it's been difficult to try to deal with it as one person among a council of others. So as far as the political labeling, was that really a matter at the time? I made it very public on my personal Facebook that I had no hiding of my identity.
Sure.
You go to my page, you know I'm a communist. It's all
Yeah.
there. You don't even have to friend me to see the information.
Do you find a lot of agreement on issues with your fellow city council people? Like, do you find a lot
Yeah,
of
I find overlap. I
Mhm.
find overlap. There are people from different sections of the political spectrum who they might be progressive, but they're not socialist. They might be Republican, and they have a more backwoods viewpoint that they don't feel so strongly with Trump.
Yeah.
Uh, so I find overlap really where I can in these nonpartisan positions, and try to work with folks where I can. But I will say it helps to have. For me, what really motivated me in the beginning of this was that I was opposed to a police station that my city council uh, councilman David Mateel, he had proposed a police station that was at budget for about um, in the vicinity between $5.2 million and $4.8 million. And so I ran this platform, but also I said it in the newspaper, in my interviews with the newspaper, that I would be opposing funding the police station. This was last year, 2019, before George Floyd and the rest of the more recent activities.
Mhm.
And now it seems that our city council wants to talk about how to address, how to help and understand the community more on how to address some of the concerns about defunding police. And I've been saying the matters the whole time where we need to be addressing the issues that regular folks are facing and try to make their needs feel like they're being addressed, as opposed to putting over 20% of our budget into a police station that isn't popular with our community. And that is kind of where we are at everywhere, it feels like, with almost every municipality in the country. Unless I'm standing wrong, but that's my interpretation.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you talk about some of your colleagues on the city council being, progressives or maybe, flirting with the idea of socialism, maybe. And we've seen, the younger generations in particular here in America really warming to the concept of socialism, especially with Bernie Sanders and AOC normalizing, democratic socialism. However, it still seems, that communism kind of has yet to make a comeback. It's still kind of looked at as a dirty word. Decades of propaganda have cast it is the enemy of American values and such. Can you just explain what you see the real difference is and why you see the value in identifying as a communist instead of a socialist or, a more, I guess, watered down version of the ideology?
Yeah, or even a Democrat.
Or even a Democrat.
Why run as a or identify as a communist as opposed to a socialist or even a Democrat? We've seen a lot of times people who personally identify as socialists will run as Democrats. That's obviously not the route that you've taken.
All right, so my spiel on it is that I'm trying to be honest with as I can with my ward, my constituents, about my political views. I'm not going to conceal it. I'm not going to try to say that I'm this particular person, even though I might have views adjacent, something further left or otherwise. I'm very transparent in that way. I guess, kind of Marx saying, it should be open, might be antiquated for some people, but for me, it's kind of prevalent still. And for me, as someone who has been, I joined the CPUSA many years ago, right? I joined initially to learn about socialism, communism, and these other things. For me, I wouldn't be true to myself if I said if I was a Democrat or as a social Democrat. I wouldn't be true to myself, and I wouldn't be in a mindset where I'd be honest with the people I'm representing.
That's perfectly fair. I just want to know what in your opinion, is the difference? What do you think the major difference is between socialism and communism, and why you're more on the communist side of things?
Okay. So you're talking about the tactics and all that,
like just theoretically or philosophically.
Sure. So for me, it feels like on a large part, a lot of the social democrats take the persistent reformist route on politics, and there's some value in that. I'm not disagreeing by any means, but For me, it's my focus is on my activities has been at the local level and trying to connect with people in my community who want to, on one hand, try to do better for each other, and on the other hand, promote a politics or a discourse on politics that is separate from what we usually get in the two-party discussion about about either Democrat or Republican, and then who want to go a little further left and just saying that we need to reform the system that we have. We recognize that there's value in going beyond capitalism, and so that's where we want to say that there's socialism, there's communism more broadly to be discussed on that platform. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. If that's
What exactly do you think the role of the government should be, especially right now in providing response to people, especially in this unprecedented time? Where would your ideology, place the government's role in your average person's life?
for dealing with COVID, especially?
Yeah, just in general.
Okay, so speaking strictly to COVID, I think we can take a lot of inspiration from Vietnam and how they've been addressing the crisis. Right, they've shut down any metropolitan region that has been even slightly affected. There was two. I think that when they found out there was 2 cases in the Da Nang region, that they shut down the entire city. Nothing entering or leaving unless explicit permission, and that was able to contain it. And the government officials were saying that we have to put people's lives over the value of profiting. And yes, we do want to strengthen our economy, and we can continue to do that after we've eradicated the coronavirus. So it's not to say, and then in the contrast in the United States, we constantly get this perception that if we do take these stricter measures, we will hurt our economy and all that. And I guess for me, it's always about trying to put the value of life over that. But at the same time, recognizing that even in the long-term economic gains, is that it's dealing with the coronavirus itself, even in that way as well. What I don't understand is that the United States is willing to completely trash people's lives. Over 160,000, I believe, have died already now from the coronavirus, and that's a significant amount of people for Americans to be losing. I mean, and the compare also between Vietnam and the United States was that the United States lost around 55,000 soldiers in the war, and we've lost almost 3 times as many from the Vietnam War on our side. And Vietnam lost a lot of life, unfortunately, but almost 3 times as many people die in the U.S. from the coronavirus than what happened in the Vietnam War, and yet we're not taking this thing nearly as seriously as we've been needing to. And I guess for me, recognizing the role of government is to try to protect people's lives, to try to take care of communities. Instead, we have federal and state governments that have abandoned communities and municipalities to try to individually reinforce about whether or not they're going to be able to wear masks or something, because it might be unconstitutional. And so all this bickering creates a lot of red tape, unfortunately, within the capitalist governments from either the federal or the state levels, and it's all about trying to preserve the rate of profit for people who own capitalists. They're not concerned about whether or not that the workers who are out in the field are going to get sick and contract this. They're not concerned as if they were anywhere concerned about healthcare workers. We would be a lot.
Yeah, I wanted to. While we're on the topic of workers, I just wanted to pause you. If I'm not mistaken, you yourself are a member of the United Food and Commercial Workers International.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you how the COVID-19 specifically has been impacting. Obviously the food service industry has been decimated economically by the shutdowns. We're all familiar with what was going on with the meat packing facilities across the country at the height of the COVID scares. I just wondered if you could speak to that as somebody, who's a member yourself.
Yeah. I just got promoted union steward, so I hear everything that goes on. And so working close to the front desk, I see every customer that's going to come in just about. We've had some really crazy reactions from people who didn't want to wear masks. I don't get it. Our store requires us, fortunately, to wear masks.
Mm-hmm.
And we require people who come into the door to wear masks. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we had people who were coming to the door and yelling at the cashier at the front, who would be telling people who had the unfortunately a very sorry job from based on how people were coming at us, like, I'm not going to wear my mask, and it's really unfortunate that we have to even tell people that come to the door in the middle of a pandemic to deal with this. And then on the economic side of things, we were getting hazard pay for a while, and now our company took it away, and we're getting pretty distraught about it, because frankly, if you're a roofer and you're on top of a roof and you find that the roof is rotted, you're going to go get off that fucking roof and you're going to renegotiate that contract and lay down the terms of what's going to have to be done for the house to deal with it. But it seems like a lot of companies who are involved with essential workers are very quick to either not provide the essential pay, and when they do, it's limited. Maybe that's within their own personal budget limits, and that's one thing. But then to take it away when we're still in the middle of the crisis.
Yeah, it's like, why even offer it to begin with? It's like you've accepted the fact that you are you're exposing your employees to excess risks by initially providing them with, additional compensation, but then removing it while the risk is as severe as it was beforehand.
And if not more so. The coronavirus has been spreading uncontained, especially in the state of Wisconsin, and we have one of the higher rates of infection, of uncontrolled rates of infection, that is going widespread, and yet we're not receiving hazard pay. We're not. What the fuck?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. Obviously, you mentioned there's only so much you can do as a single single member of your city council. As we look at the landscape for national politics, obviously we have Biden, Harris as the champions of the Democrat. Does that campaign inspire you?
No, it doesn't. Oh my God!
And I just wonder what you think that we as a left, need to be doing in this time to get people frankly the economic stimulus that they need. We've seen total inaction, and it seems as if they've completely abdicated any kind of discussion on extending the $600 unemployment. Donald Trump gave his whatever executive orders that don't seem to be able to actually do what he's intended for them to do, with the exception of maybe deferring student loan payments. So I'm just wondering what you think the next move for the working class of this country who needs these things would be.
Working class needs to tell the Democratic Party to get bent, because at this point, it's everything that they've been trying to shut down any progressive discussion, even remotely. We've seen it with Sanders 2016. We've seen it again with 2019, and after 2016, I wasn't too enthralled about Sanders running again, but he did, but he was still shut down. And then between that time of 2016 and 2019, Hillary Clinton spent all of her time trying to slander Bernie Sanders for blaming him for the reason that that she lost the election. But yet she still won with a 2 million popular vote lead over Donald Trump. And yet he still won the election because of the Electoral College. And so that entire argument is completely bankrupt. So for me is to say that we need to look beyond the Democratic Party as a solution for national state governments to be effective as a vehicle, and remove ourselves from them. And that is to say, what do you do then? Because we have this discussion in my party about what are we going to do if we stop canvassing for like the Democratic Party or something. So so my philosophy is to grow your try to connect people in your community, grow your local club, do that sort of thing. On a greater scheme of things, maybe start trying to vote for like a third party. Howie Hawkins, Angela Walker.
Both of whom have been featured on this show. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan of Angela Walker. I've been voting for the Socialist Party since 2012. I voted for Stuart Alexander and then Mimi Soltysik, and Walker was on the ticket with.
Yeah, she was a VP nominee for Mimi.
Yeah. And so I guess I'm following with Angela here that I'm going to be voting with her personally. And if the Green Party can get 5%, just 5% of the popular vote or something, I think it is, then that they will get federal funding.
Threshold for federal funding, yeah.
Yeah,
that's the dream. Have you heard about the Movement for a People's Party? They're having a convention later this month, I believe, with Nina Turner and Cornel West, some other progressive all-stars. Seems like a very viable movement happening there. The Green Party seems to just be so frustrating with how they never really quite can get past that 5%. I mean, Jill Stein, of course, who I voted for in 2016.
Ralph Nader.
Twice. And it looks like Howie Hawkins. I mean, I love the guy, and I love Angela Walker too, as you said. But, it seems like a recent poll had, Kanye West higher than Howie Hawkins. It's just so demoralizing watching the Greens do so poorly time and time again. And it's like, it seems like we really are going to need a new third party, because the Greens just do not seem to have it in them.
No, I don't exactly know what the answer is at the national state level, and that's going to have to sort itself out beyond what my local level capacity is at.
Yeah,
I'm in a town of 8,000 people. I can't answer that.
Yeah, what is your town like?
You're right on the lake, right?
Yep, lakefront. If I go out to my window, I can see Lake Superior and the Chequamegon Bay right outside my window. I'm in an apartment building, but it's pretty quaint out here. It's the Northwoods. We're surrounded by a lot of trees, not a lot of farmland. My tribe is just 15 miles down the road, and I work here in town just 2 blocks away over at my grocery store. I work in the deli.
Nice. Yeah.
Oh.
It's one of the things that we wanted to ask you about is if you thought about ever expanding your career in politics outside of the city council. Do you have further ambitions, maybe at Wisconsin state legislature, state senate, anything like that?
No. I don't think I have the interest at that level right now.
Sure.
Really, my focus and weird because I've been trying to grow my club for what I've been trying to do up here for organizing before I ran for city council, and then in upset with how my city was handling its monetary concerns about trying to address the needs of our community aside, and its ultimate wisdom that I was going to fund a police station. I reacted and ran a platform, and I won, and it's been good. I tried to derail that police station for as long as I could. We eventually couldn't derail it anymore, and it did get passed, but not without taking $300,000 out of it. So that's that anyway.
It's just kind of stay on that point for a moment. The George Floyd protests erupted all across this country, as you said, after you'd run your campaign to run against the construction of a new police station. You said. How did George Floyd's protests appear at all in your small town of 8,000? What was the mood? Did it change? Could you talk about that?
Yeah, we did have a Black Lives Matter march here in town, and I participated as well as some of our club members. And it wasn't organized by us, but we joined nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's been a subject of great concern because we do have also a very large Native community, and we did lose a young man to the county police department who was at the age of 14. His name was Jason Perro, and it's so as another minority as Native Americans, we do have our issues with police as well and how they handle these incidents.
Yeah, I wanted to
Absolutely.
get your insight on that specifically as a Native American, also with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's of course affected Native communities very disproportionately. Would you be able to give us your insight into that as well?
Yeah. So being in town, I'm not out by the reservation as much, but what I can observe anyway is that we've closed down our casino, which is undoubtedly a major source of income, and maybe a few other government operations as well for our tribal government. It's impacted us economically, but nonetheless, it seems like we don't have any infections over by Bad River yet that I'm aware of. So it's been doing good. They've been very good on prioritizing the lives of their community, knowing that the casinos heavily reliant on some amount of tourism or people coming over, but still, in light of that, they shut down their casino because they don't want to put our community at risk, and that's good on them. So I guess that's about some of the insight on coronavirus-related discussion to our tribe in a nutshell.
As far as policing goes, we saw not too long ago in Oklahoma there was a ruling by the Supreme Court that essentially would prohibit the, Oklahoma police from engaging in policing the Native American communities and tribes there. I wonder if you thought that this is a model that you would like to see expanded into other Native land or in states across the country because of the friction and the largely unspoken, unreported violence that occurs between police and Native communities.
Yeah, could you repeat that first bit just one more time? I think you said that an Oregon tribe prohibited.
Oh, Oklahoma. Sorry, Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, there was a court ruling that.
Yeah. Okay. Now that sounds familiar.
That essentially the police would not be legally authorized to, come after. I don't know the word you would use. They're not allowed to prosecute.
Pursue.
Any of the Native community because of where basically the treaties that have always existed but are just now being interpreted in a way that is less unfair for the people or the Native people of Oklahoma.
Yeah, definitely. Tribal governments are operating under federal law. They don't operate under state law. So that's an important thing to note. So for tribes to have sovereignty, at least within the or more autonomy in this way, I guess, would be to say that to protect them from either municipal or well, municipal is only within city limits anyway, but within county law is where it's really at, and then also state law. County and state laws are what tribes are largely need to be protected from. So that's what the status as a reservation comes as. Tribal land is essentially federal land. Federal law applies, but not state or county, and so there's no jurisdiction there from county or state officers. So unless maybe the highway department might have some leeway, and I don't know a whole lot on that personally, but I think it's discussion for tribes to have about how they should police theirs, and leave it at that.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today. We really enjoyed hearing about the work you're doing in Wisconsin, and the really bold platforms and ideas that you're bringing to your community. We really appreciate the work you're doing and the ideas you're spreading.
No problem. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Wahsayah. We really appreciate you chatting with us.
No problem. You have a good one, gentlemen.
Yeah, have a good night, man.
Thanks.
All right.